So I want to make sure that we move it along. And also, actually, before I do that, though, I want to call out one thing that Delno mentioned, which is her coming into a room and someone not really understanding who she is. I think that that's absolutely true for the investors that she might be sitting down at the table with. It's also true even when we get to meet interface with each other. There's just not a lot of stories that highlight the kind of experiences and the kind of achievements that many people like us in this room have. And when there's not examples of it for white people, for black people, for brown people, we do have to constantly remind people that we deserve to be in this room and that we're qualified to be in this room. So I think that one of the other things we should think about as we move forward, kind of as a society, is how do we give more spotlight? How do we highlight more of the stories of people of color, of women who are making strides and doing amazing things, so that everyone isn't an exceptional unicorn? I think that when we get to a place where a black and brown person can just be a regular person and, I don't know, be mediocre at best, we've gotten somewhere. So anyway, on that note, I'm really excited to bring up Kelly. She's gonna talk to us about some really awesome laws of the land.
Hello. Good morning. Hi friends. So nice to see everybody. I'm Kelly, as you can see. Happy Monday in Philly, my favorite city in the world. It really is, I'll tell you what. So, I'm an attorney, I'm bi-coastal. I was actually born and raised in LA. So I'm LA, New York right now. I have my own law practice, the law offices of Kelly D. Shapiro. I represent a lot of artists. DJ Jazzy Jeff is one. Yeah, a lot of Philly artists, because I started my career here. It all organically kind of flowed. But, and then I also counsel a lot of startups and small businesses and stuff, specifically black and brown founders, because they, as we just heard, there's some lack of access there. So I really like helping those that need the representation and advocacy. But how I got there was not all, you know, cotton candy and ice cream, I have to say. I was born and raised in LA, like I said. My mother actually is originally from Chester, PA. So that's why I wanted to start my career in Philly, so I can see what the East Coast lifestyle was about. But being raised in LA, at the beach, not super diverse. So the day after I graduated from college at USC at 21, I took a plane to the East Coast, and I went directly to Harvard Law School at 21. And I spent the better part of 10 years on the East Coast, finding my tribe. All my besties are here, either Philly or New York or DC. And just amassing this great network of amazing people that wanted to see me win, wanted to see me thrive, and also, you know, just planting those seeds that I didn't realize 10 years later would come to bloom into this great bi-coastal global kind of career I'm building. But it wasn't planned, so I just want to make sure there is no one-way path to get to greatness. Like our last speaker just said, you have to go through failures, you have to learn. I mean, I think, you know, I think, what is it, like most startups and even small businesses, you fail, you know, the first 2 times, but your likelihood of success, it gets much better once you have those failures, because that's just lessons. I don't even think of failures as, it's not a bad thing, it's a good word, it's a good F word in my world. But anywho, so for 10 years basically, after I graduated from law school, took the Pennsylvania bar, I studied right around here, bringing back so many memories. But I started my career here at a large law firm. But by 2008, because of financial crisis and whatnot, I was working mostly finance, real estate, securitization, and learning how to be a corporate lawyer while being an entertainment lawyer pro bono at night through Philadelphia Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. So I can advise different artists and small production companies and stuff like that who really needed the counsel who couldn't afford legal help. So after practicing for 10 years, law firms, in-house counsel at these gigantic corporate legal departments in big companies, it's like, I think, you know what, I've learned a lot. I'm going on 10 years of practicing law, but you know, do I really want to keep on, you know, making billionaires more billions while I see other people struggling, and is this really my passion, and whatnot. And so in January 2015, I decided to finally hang my own shingle. I had stepped down I was vice president counsel of a publicly traded real estate investment trust in Malibu. And again, that's all just through headhunters, and just keep trucking along, you keep plugging along, you know, you gotta take jobs sometimes, you gotta do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do later. And so, but I just kept thinking about the big picture. And then in January 2015, like I said, I hung my own shingle and started to really get involved with a lot of network, and specifically in the startup community in LA, because I saw that was where I was seeing more diversity. There's more women, there was more people of color, and so I had more startups coming to me asking me to be their representatives. And so I started representing as many startups as I was entertainment clients. And I really liked it, and I felt I was being of service there. So, but at the same time, I still have to, you know, pay the bills, and, you know, opening up your own business is scary, right? It's a risk. You know, people say, oh, I wish I could have your life. I'm like, it's not all, trust me. Yeah, it's a lot of work in it, and there's a trade-off, right? I have flexibility and whatnot, but the stability, you know, I don't know when I'm going to get, you know, my next client saying, Kelly, I have a copyright infringement case, can you take it now? I'm like, well, yeah, it's Friday night before Christmas, but sure, you know, but that's just my life. But getting there, you know, it's definitely, I can't go back, I think, to my old life, but going back to, you know, having to do what you need to do so you can do what you want to do later. I had opened my own shingle, but because, you know, my clients and the caseload is not predictable, I was moderating a lot of panels, you know, being on panels, and one panel in March 2015 put on by my law school association in LA was on successful startups. And one of the founders that was on that panel that I was moderating, she was the CEO of a fashion tech company that I'm counsel of, general counsel and COO for 2 years, and then for the last 3 months I've been outside counsel so I can focus on my own business. But it was through just being out there. Like, there's a lot of things you can do online, but going to these things too, and not just black and brown things. Like, I'm actually hosting a panel, Women in Startups, for the Harvard Law School Association of New York City on the 18th. Like, come to that. Like, you don't have to be a graduate either. Just if you know one person, you just need to be in the room with people, and you just need to have your energy out there so people will know. Like you said, you know, you have to introduce yourself. But if you show up more and more places, you know, you'll eventually things will fall into place. And I bring up that story about the panel in 2015 because the CEO who was on that panel, 3 months later, we had talked afterwards, and she said, oh, I want you to be, you know, part of my focus group for this company. We re-engineered the stiletto high heel using rocket science and aerospace engineering. Yeah. The company's called Lisa's Couture. Yeah. So that was in March when I met the CEO. And then, but we kept talking. He said, sure, I'll be in your focus group. You know, sounds good. But then I had to join a corporate finance and real estate firm in LA because, you know, mother had to pay her bills. And so, literally in June of 2015, I was day 3 after a corporate law firm, like, kill me. I was so like, no, but, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. And then the CEO took me to lunch. He said, I need you to quit that job and join my company and come in-house. And I said, give me a day. I crunched the numbers. And I quit the firm, and then I was general counsel and COO of the company, and I'm still counsel now preparing for our Series A funding. So just being, you said, just if you have a plan, stick with it, but also be open to different, you know, stage direction from the universe and whatnot. So let me see here. Now to the super glamorous and fun world of law. It's actually going to be, I know it's Monday morning and I don't want this to feel like we're in class, even though we are in University City. So let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to go over 3 different subjects. One is business formation. I mean, this is super simple, by the way, and this is very general what I'm going over. This applies to small businesses and startups. Most of this is focused on startups. And can anyone tell me, like, what's the difference between startups and just regular businesses? Like, yes?
Are startups pre-revenue?
Pre-revenue, I think, so just in terms of, I mean, yes and no, it can be pre-post, but a startup is essentially, so the difference is, you know, it's designed to scale very quickly. Like a company that's designed to grow. Not like a mom and pop, like they own their dry cleaners and they just own it and then they're the only ones who own it, or maybe pass it down to the family or something like that. They're not looking to scale quickly, meaning that's why you have these rounds of funding, so you can go like boom from, you know, concept to research and design to prototypes to proof of concept to, you know, all those things. So that's the difference. So if you need to figure out, like, are you trying to start a startup or just a business? And both are obviously are okay, but that's how it's going to frame, you know, your decision making when you're going to a professional. Don't just rely on this. You need to go. On all of my slides, it'll say that please, please go to an advisor, accounting, tax, and legal, because everyone's situation, every single business is going to have a different answer. There is no one, yes, everyone should create an LLC. No. So just really generally here, let me see. And be sure, by the way, to stick around for all the panels, because there's going to be some overlap with speaking. You know, I'm doing very broad, high-level things, and people will go, like, I know our 4 o'clock panel, they're going to go into like equity and like dilution and whatnot, stuff like that. So this is really general stuff, and I'm sure you guys all know, so the types of business structures. So you're saying, okay, I want to start my business. So these are the basic kinds, right? Sole proprietorship, partnership, LLC. Let's see. Oops. Okay. So sole proprietorship, so it's easy, you know, everything, but you share all the liability, right? That probably is not going to be, you know, again, it depends on what business, you know. Law offices of Kelly D. Shapiro, sole proprietorship, you know. But partnership, 2 or more people, pros and cons, LLC, again, simple, you know. So, but again, it all depends on what kind of business you're starting and where also, in terms of people say, well, where should I incorporate? Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Where are you doing it? A corporation is, of course, the most typical startup structure, you know, and we have different, you know, reasons why they have positives, couple of cons. I do have to say, with people who, you know, they want to incorporate, they want to, you know, have this corporation and business, but also when you get the protections and the benefits of incorporating or forming any kind of business, but specifically corporations, there are things that you have to do to get the benefits of being a corporation. There's a legal concept called piercing the corporate veil. It's when some CEOs or businesses, they're not really acting like a business, and so they're not keeping up with, you have to keep up with minutes. And a lot of it is self-auditing. So it's like, oh, no one's going to check to see if I kept up minutes and stuff like that. It's like, well, if you do get audited, then the government can pierce that corporate veil and be like, actually, you were operating kind of like you were an individual, not really like a business, because you weren't taking care of all of the filings and the fees and all these things. So there is a lot of upkeep. You can't just like incorporate and then leave it, because so you're not going to be protected. So that's the one thing, like when you're ready to incorporate, if that's your, you know, way to go, just know that you're going to need to be on top of it, or either have a co-founder or whoever, a good accounting firm or whatnot, that can make sure you stay up to date with your periodic filings, because the last thing you want is you have all these great investor meetings and then they're like, you know, your status on the, you know, state website is revoked right now. Like, that investors don't want to see that, you know. So there's 2 different biggest types of corporations, and again, that's more high-level stuff. But you know, S corp versus C corp, and you can start as one and then, you know, revoke your status and become another one. But that's all basically taxation structure. We can talk about that later if anyone has questions. So why incorporate? A lot of people kind of don't. It's like, oh, I don't want to start paying fees, and I don't want to start having to do all these periodic filings, but like we heard in the first session, there are a lot of benefits on why you should actually form your business and just take it from the concept in your head or to your vision board and actually make it a business. So again, a lot of it is against personal liability, attract investors, and protection of your company and the individuals therein. And then also to have your corporation own your intellectual property. That's big. You want to make sure everyone in the company has assigned their intellectual property to the company, and we'll talk about that a little later. Oops. So, just 3 main takeaways for each section I would say. So for this one, form it as soon as you're ready. Why incorporate? Just so you can operate your business. And yeah, every situation is different. So please, please, please contact your local tax, accounting, and legal service providers. So 2, equity. Fun, right? Yes? Okay, so types of shareholders. So this is designed for startups, right? Not necessarily, we're not really going to go into the regular businesses. If, you say, I'm just going to get a loan from my uncle for, 100K or 10K, whatever. That one, or you can just get a loan. And a lot of people also, I want to make sure people read what they write. I was so sad, this person who had started a small kind of creative company, and they were having a lot of anxiety about this investor. They kept calling them an investor. And I said, are you sure it's an investor? And they sent me the documentation. I'm like, this is not an investment document. This is a promissory note. That was a loan. It was not an investment. So please understand what, people are looking at you for an opportunity as well. So really understand what kind of investor you're getting, or is it just a friends and family loan, or is it just a straight up loan from a bank or whatever. But for equity for this situation, we're just talking about the private startups. And these are, again, just basic terms. So when you start up with the startup, you have founder stock, right? And then you have investors, and these are the 2 biggest kinds. We can talk about, crowdfunding and, those kinds of things. But the biggest 2 buckets are angel investors. You hear about that, like, who's an angel? Don't they sound so ethereal and, like, wonderful? No, it's just a really rich person who can, or, yeah, I consider that rich if you just have, like $500,000 in the bank just ready to, to deploy, who likes your idea and wants to invest in you. I do have to say, be cautious about angel investors who are not used to investing in tech or startups, because it's very high risk. And a lot of people who are used to investing in things like real estate, they can't get the concept that this may not work out and all your money's gone. So you have to have a very high tolerance of risk to be an angel investor, or just have a lot of money and you're like, oh, it's an expensive mistake. So angel investors are one, and then venture capital. When people talk about VCs, venture capital, a lot of people don't really understand what it is. So it's just, I feel like it sounds like such a complicated concept, but it really is just, again, it's a fund of money pulled from other investors. So when you break it down, it's not, I don't think, as complicated as sometimes we make it seem. And then the 3rd type of shareholders are employees. And yeah, stock options are grants, and then of course I hope we all know that most grants of stock, especially for employees, advisors, is going to be, you don't immediately get stock, but that's another mistake I've seen founders make, is they think they're giving out stock to, this new member of our advisory board, you got to give them something, or I can't pay this developer, so I'm giving them stock. Like, okay, but it's on a 5-year vesting schedule? Oh yeah. All right, let me see the doc. Like, where's the vesting schedule? Oh, they never signed that. It's like, well, you granted them stock then, and it immediately vested. So you have to do it together. So maybe that's why, again, you gotta see the professionals. You could try to do it on your own, but there's so many little things that you have to remember, specifically with vesting. And everyone knows what vesting schedules is, right? Yeah, okay. You earn your stock, you don't immediately get it, so people don't just bounce. It's like, great, I have 100,000 shares of Facebook stock, I'm relieved. So rounds of funding, and again, this is just for startup companies, really the ones that need to scale quickly. And again, these are just usual. So seed stage, you guys hear that a lot. It's usually very early on. And usually angel investors talking about VCs, accelerators, incubators, they'll inject maybe some capital in exchange for some equity in your company. And then, so the second round typically can be venture capital rounds. That's when you hear like a Series A, and they're Series B, and that's where more institutional investors come around. And then 3, the initial public offering. And people say, like, why do you go public? Like, it's such a, a term like, oh, Snapchat's going public, SoulCycle is going public. Like, what? It's really just to raise more money for their company, and also to make the venture capitalists and the people who have invested thus far, they can actually see a return on their investment. So, but again, these are very general, big concepts, and we can talk about it more later. Oops. And so, equity 3 takeaways. Yeah, pay close attention. Like, sit down and read all the documents. I see it all the time with founders. They really don't understand what they are signing, and they will say what they think is in their documents, and it's completely contrary. So please just, be patient, and if you don't understand what you're reading, ask somebody, and don't be afraid at all. So, the vesting schedules are very important. And then 3, not all money is good money. I have to say, right now I'm co-founder of a medical device accessory startup for my rapper client in Queens, and then a financial friend in LA. They both share the same kind of story and passion for this one product, and I kind of the glue that brought it together. But now we're deciding what kind of, how do we want to fund this? Because if we choose to take in investors, they have to be strategic. Who's going to get us to the next level? Whose network do we want to get in? Just, I've seen angel investors, people are just like, ooh, $100,000 check? Yeah, I'll take that. I'm like, yeah, but now you just have this person who just likes to opine all the time about your operations, and they don't know anything about what you're doing, but they feel entitled, as they should, because they put in $100K. But then, meanwhile, you didn't take in a great fund like Backstage Capital. Arlen's speaking later. I love Backstage Capital. Or Built by Girls. They specifically invest in startups founded by women. They're based out of New York City. They're both investors in the fashion tech company. But I push for us to have Backstage, because I'm like, no, Backstage, first of all, I just love what they're doing, but it's the networks and the strategic partnerships you can leverage through your investors. So just, I know it's hard to say no to money, but it's actually a good thing. So 3, IP, fun times. So when you're starting your company, and it doesn't matter again if it's a small business or if you are, a startup and you think you're going to go down the path of raising capital through VCs or angels or whatever the case may be, you really need to start building that portfolio, because that's going to be one of your biggest points of value for your company. And just you need to make sure that everything is assigned to the company, and that's going back to the first part, why the company has to be its own thing, so that company can own it, not one individual. Because that, again, it's kind of common sense, but you need the company, not an individual, a company to grow in value, and so everyone needs to assign their IP, and that means anything. If you're just, one of your graphic designers or something could come up with an amazing, suggestion for this or that of the product. Yeah, but when they signed up for their, on their advisor or contractor or employee agreement, you always have that assignment of intellectual property, just so there's no break in the chain of title of IP, that it all goes back to the company always. Because investors, again, are going to say, or partners, or whoever it's going to be, and be like, well, do you even own your IP, or should I actually go, get it from the person who actually does own it, to whatever it is. It could be to if you have an app, or if you just, there's a lot of value in the brand. For the fashion tech company, yeah, there's a patent in our internal architecture, but there's also value in the brand that we are building as well. So that means the trademark and, different things there, but and copyrights in various things as well. So and it's really cheap too. It's not as expensive as people think. Like even for trademarks, patents of course are going to be a bit more, but you can also find great law firms that I have many recommendations that will work with you too, that specifically will counsel startups and work with you, different payment structures, or they can do, work on equity. I've definitely seen that. There's different law firms that will work on equity, and then you can kind of have like a credit, like of, I don't know, $100,000 worth of legal services in exchange for equity or something like that. So, takeaways, own it, increase value, yeah, and do the due diligence, please. I really hate it too when people are so married to whatever concept they have or this idea or a name, and then it's like, well, did you do a search to see if this was already out there? And they do all this work, and then they find out like, oh, I can't use that name. Or, and by the way, that's not the end of the story. Everything's negotiable. So even if someone does have what you want, you know, you never know. You can give them a call and say, are you even using this anymore? Can I just buy it off you for $500? You know, so don't quit, but try to do as much due diligence on the front end so you're not then burned on the back end. And yeah, I think that's about it. Questions?
How do you actually go about, say you develop something and you're partnering with people, they bring their own
Okay, cool. So say you partner with people and they bring their own IP to it, right? To build a foundation for a platform. However, you come on top of that with your own intellectual property to create something completely brand new. How do you navigate that from an IP standpoint?
Well, you have a nice little meeting with your legal team, right? And you would just sit and see what, you know, first of all, well, this is a case by case, like I said, I don't really know exactly what you're talking about, but if they can come, I mean, I would already think that both sides would want to work together to build something really big, right?
Yeah.
So I would think we're coming from a place of, you know, collaboration, so I don't see there'd be much contention there, but there's a way if they want to assign it over to the company, I mean, so instead of it just being two people talking about their various intellectual property, it's like the company and then someone else bringing their IP that I guess can add to the company's IP, I guess? Is that what you're saying?
Right, well, so essentially, I developed a platform. However, we have programming partners who came with some technology to help make that happen. But it's all of our ideas, it's all of our applications, everything else. They just kind of had this kind of, the actual technology itself, they came to the table with that already.
Well, I would think that in your discussions with them, they're going to say what they, like if they want to withhold 100% ownership of that or not, or if they want to license it out to you. You know, so I mean, that's a discussion you have to have with them. I don't know what they're going to say. So, yeah, that's just an adult conversation you're going to have early, you know, and really, and also put this on paper. You're going to have that. For sure, get an IP expert, a patent attorney, who can say, you know, analyze, you know, what they own, what they're bringing to the table, and then, yeah, it's really what they want to do, though. Like, if they own it and you need it, so are we going to work this out as a license, or can you assign it all and then the company owns it? I mean, I don't know. It's up to you guys. So, yeah.
So, I have a question about business formation. I'm wondering how you determine when it's too early, or in your opinion, how do you determine when it's time to do that type of work?
So I would think, you know, are you ready to do business, right? So, like for the startup that I'm with my rapper, you guys know who Farrah Monch is? Simon Says? Yeah, that's my client. Thank you. And the medical device accessory space. I like to transition my artists from music world, because not a lot of money in the music business, into the VC and startup world. It's amazing. So anywho, with that, you know, I was talking to Farrah, I was talking to my other co-founder, Chris. It's like, you know, we're all been around the block. Chris, my other co-founder, is the president of a bank. I've been a lawyer for 12 years. We know what we're doing, but we're gonna, you know, when we decided when to form our business, like, first of all, we need to decide on a name, You know, things like, seriously, things like that. We have all these business models and stuff, but we still don't have a name. So things like that, because I said, okay guys, I'm ready to create our company, but do we decide on a name yet? Things like that. It's like, when do we need to actually start the company? When are we about to start actually taking in funds, either self-funded, right? So you need to start that business so then you can set up a bank account, you know, get an EIN, do all those things, start building your portfolio of IP, because once it's named, I came up with a name and I think we should use mine. But that will be our first real piece of IP. So but you gotta make sure is the name available, all those things. So we're ready because, okay, we've done this, we've done the modeling, we have our first prototype, we do this, we pick the name, we know where, right? Are we a startup, right? Are we just going to have a business and just operate? No. So, okay, so we're a startup, so we should probably incorporate in Delaware and the state, okay. You know, so you need to check off these certain boxes that you're ready to form a business. And again, be ready to start acting like a business. So it's not just dormant and then, you know, it expires and whatnot. So it depends on you, like when are you ready to kick it off? I mean, maybe you need to start it so that'll be like a kick in the pants or something, but there is no real one answer of when. It's really when you're ready. Sorry, did I answer it? Kind of. Yeah, I can't tell you, basically.
Thank you so much for your information on structure. As we know, though, lots of people ignore this for a bit. So I know a situation where there are two partners, two students, decided to start a startup. One put all the money in, and the other did the work. And now,
sweat equity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the one who did the work now says, since I did the work, I own the IP, and sorry, I'm not giving your money back. Do you have any recommendations for how to resolve those kinds of things?
Those are friends?
Not anymore.
I don't sound like friends. I'd say, what did they agree to in the beginning? What's in writing? 50-50 what? Okay, so how did they get IP goes to 100% to the sweat equity person? So I always go back, you know, I never have to take any of the blame for, you know, person. Like, look at the document. If the document says it, I'm not saying it. It's what the document says.
So that's the problem, they didn't talk.
I just said, what did the document say? Oh, yeah, I really don't like informal. Well, that's, you know, error number one. You gotta document it for these very reasons, right? Or the document it properly about, oh no, I thought this employee, you know, they're gonna leave me and they're taking so much of my stock. I was like, well, I thought he was on a 5-year vest, you're fine. They left after, oh, I didn't sign the thing. It's like, well, so I don't know what to tell you. It's the document. It's what you signed. So for that, yeah, I mean, they're gonna have to battle it out. I mean, sadly, they really are. That's what happens though when you don't document things properly in the beginning, and then, you know, I'm all about preventative medicine, you know, so you can avoid getting this kind of sickness. Oh, that's unfortunate, but they'll get through it.
Hi, good morning. Amazing
morning.
presentation. Thank you. I'm Camille. I'm the founder of Pop-Up Plus, and we're an online shop of plus size girls.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Girls in the house. My question is, how do you find legal representation for your startup? I've had maybe one or two, and it has not been a positive experience. And I'm in New York, and I feel like everybody's a startup, tech company or something. So what is your advice for finding great representation and someone who really will take the time to work with you for minimal cost? I know that's a lot to ask. And secondly, how do you deal with someone like internationally who's infringing on company IP? Like right now, just to give you an example, we have someone in Africa using our name, and we tried to be polite, and that's not really working.
you know, you have to, it's kind of like finding a doctor. I think you got to figure out who you work well with. When people ask me for a legal representation, a recommendation for whatever it is, family law, startup law, you know, whatever, I always try to give them 3 names. Talk to all 3, see which ones you vibe with, and also who you can work with financially. Like what structure, are they on contingency, are they hourly, can you do an equity situation? But you want to work with someone who will grow with you. Like all my clients, I like them a lot. Like the one thing that's different with my practice now versus when I was just in corporate law, you know, I wasn't super in love and fired up every day, you know, schlepping off to do, you know, some big deal in securitization for, you know, a big billionaire bank. But, you know, I love for my clients, I represent comedyhype.com, it's a comedy network for Black and Latinx. I love growing with them, and so they'll just keep me apprised of what they're going on. If they're raising more funding, or hey, we need to get this partner on, this partner off. They just keep me apprised, but they found me organically. They knew I was a comedy nerd. They saw that I represented some comics and stuff. So organically, they reached out to me. It's like, you seem to know our world, and you seem great. And then I work with them. They, you know, I have very flexible, you know, billing structures and whatnot, but if it's the right fit, that lawyer will work with you, and then it'll really be your advisor, and it'll grow, you know, into more of just strictly, you know, just being a billable hour. That was the one thing that was killing me, is like all the clients are just a billable hour, and I don't like to kind of live like that. So you just got to find the right lawyer for you, and I think, are you going to be in New York on October 18th? Come to my panel. You'll meet zillions of lawyers there. Yeah, we have great panels, 3 women of color. They're all, the former GC of Rent the Runway is going to be on the panel, yes. I'll be on the panel. The founder of the Entrepreneurs Legal Clinic at Fordham is going to be on the panel, and it's just going to be, you know, silly with lawyers there. You'll find like 20 of them there. That will work with you, and find someone also that believes in your cause and is with it, just like me being GC of Thesis Couture, is because I said, oh, I'm down with that company. You know, I can wear heels like all day long and not have to, you know, transition to flats. I'm in. So I believed in the company, and I was willing to take that cut in pay and grow with also the equity stake. So you can work with it, but you got to go to, you know, go where the lawyers are. It's Women in Startups, and it's on, just ping me on my website, and then I'll send you the invitation when I think it's coming out today. But yeah, that's on the 18th in New York. And so the second one, so with international infringers, it's tough, right? Especially so the company I'm working on now with Faro, it's like, you know, we know, or even the fashion tech company, we know as soon as we come out on the market, you know, you're going to start having counterfeiters, right? People are going to rip apart shoes and try to, you know, recreate it, or the thing I'm doing with Faro, they're immediately going to try to, especially in China and whatnot. So the strength of your IP, of course, make sure it's extremely strong in America, and you can do your international IP work, but you're just going to have to come to, you know, you can go after them, right? But you just have to, it's a cost-benefit analysis too. How much, you know, good money do you want to throw after bad kind of thing? Are they really taking away a lot of your customers? And see, is it worth it? Because you're gonna, I mean, that's also a kind of a compliment that they're copying it, right? So I think, you know, first you gotta deal with the first question, and they'll help you with the second. Right? You're welcome.
Hi, I'm over here. Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm Lolita Walker. I am the founder of Walker & Walker Enterprises, which is a change management consultancy to help individuals and organizations really transition through change successfully. I started it as an LLC, so I've been getting some coaching to really elect as an S Corp, but I'm really kind of struggling with whether or not I see the benefits now because it is in startup mode. Although I can really see where it's going to go. So I just wanted some thoughts from you on what are maybe like 2 pros and then 2 cons I should really just watch out for before I make the decision.
To go from LLC to an S Corp?
To elect as an S Corp,
yeah. And then, after that even, you know, there are different, you know, that's more technical too because, you know, electing for the S Corp, then you may have to do a relocation of the S Corp. You want to do C Corp. You know, it's all it's really comes down to tax questions.
Yeah.
It really does. It's you know, you sit down with your accountant and with your partners and decide, you know, what your plan is. I would think if you're going towards that startup mode that you're gonna have to, you know, go into the incorporation kind of phase, but I think you should sit down with your advisors and talk about it. But we can talk afterwards too, but it's a very individualized answer, I think, for you.
All right, thank you.
We can do one more question. I'm gonna let Kelly choose. I can't do it.
He's had his hand up since like the beginning.
The hat? Okay, yes, that was.
You do the startup. You talk to a lot of people about various things, trying to find money. How important would you say a non-disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement is to startup and also MOU?
I think NDAs and confidentiality, I definitely think you should have people just send it quickly on DocuSign, like, oh, I just popped it over on DocuSign, can you sign that real quick? Just make sure everyone's on the same page, even if, you know, a lot of people, you know, NDAs are hard to enforce in California and whatnot, but still having people sign NDAs, treat every conversation confidentially, because people also, everyone likes to gossip, which is a shame, but, you know, be careful about who you talk to, you know, your ideas about. You know, so I think the NDAs, I send people NDAs, we're talking to manufacturers this week, and I always give them an NDA first before I think about, certainly not sending you any files and pictures before you send an NDA. But at the same time, when you're talking to like money people, a lot of, you know, you don't want to also turn people off. And it's also counterintuitive. It's like you do want to share enough that they can make an informed decision. So I think it's just a balancing act. You should use NDAs when you can. You know, especially with anything regarding intellectual property and stuff, but just talking about basic concepts, you should be okay. But again, it's a case by case.
Actually, we moved and all that.
I've always had a presence in Philadelphia since 2005, man.
And where's it located?
So it's not brick and mortar, we're virtual office. But no, the dream is one day. Right now I'm just LA, New York City, because that's where most of my clients are, but my first and favorite will always be Philadelphia. So, yeah, I'm always available in Philly. You're welcome. All right. Enjoy the rest of the
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So that was really awesome, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna have a short break. You guys have been very good and very patient while we get things off and into cruising altitude for the day. We have some food still here in the back. We are going to be refreshing the coffee and tea with some hotter temperature coffee and tea shortly. But there is still plenty of snacks. There's a bottle of water, and we are going to reconvene in 10 minutes.
Great leaders, consumers,
Good, how are you? Nice to meet you.
There's only so many of us. I think I'm only one of two women. Set up a financial institution or fund something. I think it's part of like
Comcast video on the Wi-Fi. They're not playing it up here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know we had like a whole little commercial.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, fintech's really important.
I don't know if they had that like program on
So it's fintech. Right, and yet it's more money.
It's so vital to our business in terms of innovation and improving the experience of our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be really good. We're trying to do a partnership with the Community Law Entrepreneurship Center, but I want to do more of sort of the start all stuff, just as like part of our entrepreneurship. Because money management, personal finance is not an entity, and whether I'm a host, so it's really going to be a large idea of
and surround themselves with the best talent possible.
okay.
OBS, so they have different like Wirecast, which is the switcher. So if you're going to be broadcasting, you need a switcher to show which type of video. So like this, I can go here and pick like, all right, I need the intro slide versus the commercial that I have running right now. So I can pick what you see. I can have two different screens on there, and that's a free software. So it's pretty limited, but that's what the free one does. Now the ones you start paying for, it costs a nice little bit of money. But like this is a great start.
Can I go directly to my phone, or I need to have like some sort of professional setup like this?
You need to have a setup, but this isn't like, it's not crazy professional. That piece is like 137. Right? You can get, I'm assuming you can get one of these. This can't be more than 250. So if you figure that that's, I don't know, $400 under, and you already have a laptop on show, Thunderbolt cable. These are about right. Very simple. And, you know, phones are good too. I just think that like when you do this, going there is what makes sure it changes the ability of how many platforms at a time. So your phone, yeah, you can do one, but with this, like I said, we're at like, I think we got 5 to 7 destinations right now.
Gotcha. And you guys platforms are what?
Switchboard or live.
How much is it?
They have. There's a free version.
don't be afraid. Come close.
It's given me a pride for working at Comcast.
Yes. I don't think people heard when I made this announcement before. We have lost a laptop. It's a silver MacBook Pro. It doesn't have any stickers. It's like a 13-inch MacBook Pro.
Great leaders can surround themselves with the best talent possible.
Come find me or Leonie in the back because we're good.
Comcast opens up a lot of new paths. Don't be afraid to take that chance.
So that we can return it to its owner, please. Awesome. Okay. Now, next up, we have Mandela. And she is going to talk to us about
It's really an exciting event to see how we really impact the communities and the surrounding areas.
Mandela's going to wake y'all up. If the caffeine hasn't kicked in yet, you'll be feeling it after this one. Without further ado, Mandela Schumacher Hodge Dixon.
Alrighty, can you guys hear me okay? Last time, okay. Hello? Hello? I might move. So, good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I came all the way from California to do better. Good morning. Right, any California in the house? Anybody else? Hello. Alright, so, Clipper's right here. Haven't been up here yet. So my name is Mandela. I work at Cape Coral Capital, a seed stage venture capital firm based in Oakland, California. We invest in gap-closing social impact ventures, closing gaps of access, opportunity, and outcomes for low-income communities and communities of color in the United States. Friendly reminder, please tweet. You can tweet for my benefit, but you can also tweet for your benefit, because one of the things I'm going to teach you today is how to position yourself as an authority figure. And one of the ways you start doing that is by showing that you are actually at places other people should be at. All right, so the secret language of success. By a show of hands, how many of you have ever attempted to sell a service or a product that you literally asked people if they wanted? They told you yes, but when you put it out there, they did not buy. Anybody? Anybody did that? Okay, I'm not the only one. By a show of hands, how many of you attempted to bring other people into your fold, into your team, and tried to recruit them, and they said, nah, I'm good? Anybody? No? I'm the only one that's tried to recruit and failed? Okay. What about, is there anyone by a show of hands who has attempted to raise money from a funder, whether it's a venture capitalist, a foundation, a government grant, an application to a pitch competition, and they said, no thank you? Anybody? Okay, more hands went up. All right, well, I think I may know the reason why that is. And it has to do with you are not speaking their language. What does that mean? Well, let's go back to the foundational definition of language. Language is the method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way. That's all nice and good, but basically it's a tool. Language is a tool at which you can get people to listen, to care, and most importantly, take action. There are over 6,909 active languages in the world right now. And all because you're speaking English does not mean you are speaking someone else's language. There is a secret language that I'm going to teach you today. Oprah knows what this language is. She leverages it very well for her success. MLK knew this language. He leveraged it too. Obama, he definitely mastered the secret language. And the late Steve Jobs, one of the best to ever know and understand and apply the secret language. I myself have leveraged this to go from a 6th grade teacher in South Central Los Angeles to Silicon Valley, pitching business people, developers, designers, marketers, get them enlisted in my ideas when I was an outsider. I've used this to recruit a team of people, enlist them in a vision. I've used it to win pitch competitions, to get investment from firms like Cape Coral Capital, 500 Startups, and Magic K-12. I've also leveraged this secret language to speak on over 65 stages over the last 6 years in Silicon Valley. I've leveraged it to write over 100 articles And some of those articles have been featured on Forbes, LinkedIn, and Medium as some of the best pieces of the year. I've also leveraged the secret language to sit down with some of the biggest players and influencers in Silicon Valley, the founders and investors who are making this industry go round. And lastly, I've leveraged the secret language to now teach it to over 20 founders from around the country, teaching them everything I know so they can benefit from this secret language. And what is it? It's empathy. Pay attention. You think you may know, but you don't know. Empathy is the ability to experience the world from another's perspective. It requires that you stop taking selfies and focusing on yourself, and you flip that camera around and start focusing on the other person. It requires that you put yourself in someone else's shoes. Sometimes that means literally, but more times I'm talking about figuratively. There are 3 types of people that every founder needs to have empathy for. The first one is the customer. The person you are trying to get to buy your product or service. If you don't speak the secret language to the customer, it doesn't matter anything else you do. This is by far the most important thing. Thereafter, the teammates. You need to empathize with your teammates. And as Kelly was just talking about, your funders. You need to empathize with the people who are investing capital into your venture. If you don't have empathy for the customer, the teammate, or the funder, you cannot speak their language and you miss the opportunity to engage them. So when I was asking you the questions at the beginning, who's tried to sell something and failed? Who's tried to recruit and failed? Who's tried to pitch and it failed? More than likely, you weren't speaking their language. So you can build the most beautiful app, the most beautiful website. You can have the nicest landing page, but if you don't speak their language, it's going to fail. You can have the most beautiful office and all the nice perks, but if you're not speaking the language that matters to your teammates, you are going to lose them or not be able to recruit them at all. And of course, if you are also trying to, if you're sending 1,000 emails to 1,000 investors and you're not getting any responses or you're getting no after no after no, it's more than likely that you're not speaking their language. All right, so what I'm going to ask you guys to do is take a little dip in the spa. Taking a dip in the spa means deciding, investigating, profiling, assessing stranger danger, planning, and acting. First thing you have to decide is which person are you going after? This is your customer. Which person are you going after? This is your teammate. Which person are you going after? This is your funder. Who exactly are you trying to target? Like I told you, I work with many founders, and one of them in particular is trying to go after Black women in terms of who she's trying to sell to. Well, there's many different types of Black women. There's Kamala Harris's of the world, there's the Michelle Obamas, there's the Isas, there's the Mary Janes. Which type of Black women are you trying to appeal to? You have to get granular and make sure you can speak their language. The second thing you have to do is you have to get your CIA on it. You have to investigate these people. And there's 3 main ways to investigate. Make observations, meaning you don't affect their environment. All you do is you get a little creeper status and you just start watching them. You start seeing how they dress, what they say, what they're doing, who they're hanging out with, what they're not saying. You make observations. Second option, you have conversations. Sit down with them, ask them questions, get to know them. Be careful not to ask biased questions where you're trying to lead them into an answer that affirms what you already believe. Questioning is very important in making sure you're asking objective questions. And then lastly, if you don't have access to the people you're trying to get to, right? Send surveys. There's other ways in which you can do this. And social media makes it so easy now. How many people in here know that you can do a poll on Instagram? On an Instagram story, you can do a quick poll. How many people know you can do a poll on Twitter? On Facebook? Leverage these opportunities to learn more about the people you're trying to target. Next up, in the spa, you have to profile the person. So you've decided who you're going after, you've put your CIA hat on, and you've gotten some information about them. Now it's time to create their profile. So for instance, if we're focusing on Issa's in her late 20s, she's female, single, no children, lives in Inglewood. She's a youth liaison at a nonprofit called We Got Show. She makes $60K annual income, the bachelor's degree from UCLA. Other things about Issa. Her goal, she wants to help others be a good person and find happiness. She also wants to have a lit quotation. She values friendship. Quote, I actually give tons of them. I'm a prostitute of feelings. The reason why it's important to quote these people, because you get a sense of their personality, right? And you can start learning their language, right? Would Mary Jane say that? Probably not, right? So this is why you have to go granular and really understand each person's language. Beyond the categories I was just sharing, there are other things that you need to profile about the person, and this becomes a customer avatar. If you have not done a customer avatar yet, but you are building a business, you've missed the most important step. You're going to have to stop, go back to the fundamentals, learn about the people you're trying to target, build out their customer avatar. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll notice sources of information, like books, magazines, blogs. You're like, well, why do I need to know what they're reading? Because this is your distribution channel. This is how you're going to connect with them. Maybe you want to run an advertisement on those magazines. Maybe you want to publish an article there because you know Issa Rae is going to be there and that's your target. So again, you need to take the time to profile and map out who your customers, who your teammates, even who your funders are. Do this for an investor and you will start learning their language. All right, next one, we're getting to the spa. Stranger danger. It is incredibly mind-boggling, and I may have done this too, but it's incredibly mind-boggling how we forget common courtesy and that oftentimes we make asks of strangers we don't even know. And from the other person's perspective that you're trying to get the attention of, they're like, who are you? Why should I be helping you? Why should I stop everything I'm doing to support you? You have to understand that more than likely you're going to be a stranger to people first and foremost. And it's your job to identify that and realize you're going to have to put in some work to build trust, to build rapport with people before you make an ask. Okay? I get emails all the time, hey, Nadella, can you do this, can you do that, can you do this? And I promise you, nobody is waiting around to be asked something or to be sold something. Something. Nobody is. Imagine someone coming and knocking on your door at home. Boom, boom, boom. And immediately like, hi, I'm da-da-da-da, and I'm doing this and that. Can you do this for me? You're like, whoa, I don't know you, right? But we do it all the time. Recognize you're a stranger. You have to build rapport first before you make an ask. All right, the final two. Plan. All right? I can tell you all this stuff, but if you don't make it into a strategic plan, you're not going to get anywhere. So here's a few common problems with emails that oftentimes happen. The subject line looks like a trap, okay? Meaning, right, if you don't have a good subject line, you have no chance of getting the other person's attention. No way they're going to open that. Emails are flooded with spam, all sorts of stuff. So in order to break through that, you have to have a better subject line. So a current piece of advice is there a microphone? Sorry, there's sound coming through. It threw me off. So is my subconscious talking? That's so weird. Okay. Subject line looks like a trap. So a technique you may want to use that I use oftentimes is I try to find commonality, right? Because commonality builds trust. When you have something in common with someone, they're more apt to listen to you. There's already a connection. So for instance, if I don't know somebody personally, I go on LinkedIn and I try to find out who we know in common. And I will put that in the subject line. I'm like, hey, Daryl, I know page 2. And he's like, oh, who's this, right? So again, leverage commonality. There's a second tactic I use called recognition. Recognition is when you stroke somebody's ego. You tell them how amazing they are, how wonderful you thought their latest article was, what you think about their amazing investment firm, stroking their ego. And then the third one is inspiration. Everybody wants to be inspired. What are you doing that ties to what they care about that they can get inspired by, okay? But you guys need to work on those subject lines, okay? Because otherwise it's not even getting through. Self-centered, it's too self-centered, meaning it's all about you, 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 you. And again, remember, speaking their language means speaking to what they care about. Inauthenticity. People can smell bullshit a mile away, okay? They can. I know you can smell it too, right? You know, you can, smells like bullshit, okay? Don't be on the other end of that, okay? You need to be authentic. People will care about you once you start caring about them. Okay? Too long. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you, but nobody's waiting around, waiting to open an email that's a book. Okay? Keep it short. Anything more than a paragraph or two, you're gone. Okay? Keep it short, keep it brief. Boring. Again, people, you have to use you have to understand we're living in the ADD, ADHD, instant stimuli generation where people are so used to infotainment that you have to add a little jazz to what you're putting out there to get people interested. Not relevant means, why are you telling me about something that I am not related to or I don't care about? And if you did research on me, you would have known that, right? You shouldn't be coming to me, you should be coming to someone else. And then no call to action. Have an ask in there. Closed mouths don't get fed. What do you want? By when do you want it? Okay? Be specific. Do you want me to look at your whole deck, or do you want me to look at slide 5 and tell you about your product roadmap? Right? Be specific, because when you don't do these things, you disrespect people's time. And nobody likes to have their time disrespected, so it's your job, again, to do your homework up front. Another thing when you're planning, thinking not just about your content, but think about your strategy and how many touch points you're going to make to this person so that you consistently try to get your message out to them. Because the first email may not work. I have a rule that says 3 by 3. I will email someone 3 times before I let it die for a little bit, and I will email them every 3 days. So day 1, I'll be like, hi, I'm Adela, blah, blah, blah. They don't respond, I give them 3 days. I send them another one, they don't respond. I wait 3 days, I send them another one. But on the last time, they don't respond, I always got a little trick up my sleeve. And in my subject line, I put, hi Jim, is everything okay? Question mark. And I put, oh, I just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. I've been reaching out to you. And that's it, it's just 2 lines. Every time I get a response. Because what you do is you make the other person feel guilty. Okay? So you're a little guilty. It's a little pro tip. Every time it works. But in general, you just need to recognize that it's not just a one-time attempt. Getting someone's attention, you have to do it a couple times. And notice here, there are 2 promotions, meaning 2 opportunities to sell, but there are many touch points throughout that. The reason for that is that people don't want to be sold. They want to be helped. People don't want to be sold, they want to be helped. So provide value, 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 value. I'm sneaking and ask. Value, 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 value. I'm sneaking and ask. Okay? Help them first before you ask them for something. And then lastly, and most importantly, act, founders, act. You are getting so much information today, later on this afternoon. If it goes and dies in your little notebooks and collect dust, and I don't see you applying them, get an F in foundership, okay? It's all about putting this into action. So today, when you email someone, stop and think and ask, am I speaking their language? And if you don't know what their language is, go back to the CIA step and investigate who these people are, because you're wasting opportunities when you're sending things that are landing on deaf ears. All right, so now we're going to rewind. We're going to rewind. Come on, people. We're going to rewind. Let's go. Rewind. Rewind. Don't be so stiff. Come on. So rewind in terms of what did I just teach you? All right, let's make sure we were paying attention. Remember, taking a dip in the sea means deciding. Deciding who you're going after. Are you going after Michelle Obama? Are you going after Kamala Harris? Are you going after Issa Rae? Are you going after Mary Jane? Are you going after Mandela? Are you going after Ania? Who are you going after exactly? Step 2, investigate. You should know everything about me if you're trying to sell me. Everything. You can find all this information online. Go to my Facebook, go to my Instagram, go to my Medium post, see what I write about. You should be using that to learn my language. Profile. Create a profile of me. I know it's kind of creepy if I find it, but create one. You should have it. Stranger danger. Recognize how well do I know you. Are you 20 degrees away from me? Are you 5 degrees? However far away from you, however far you are away from someone else, oh, that's a tongue twister, you have to work that much harder to get closer to that person and build trust. And how I oftentimes do it is my LinkedIn trick. I'll go on and try to find somebody I know, and that'll be my entree into getting the person's attention. You all have that tool. Plan, most importantly, act. Okay, empathy is the ability to see the world from another's perspective. I found this makeup artist, and I thought it was a wonderful analogy for what I'm trying to tell you guys. About before you go out and try and start selling your customers, selling the talent to join your team, selling investors, put yourself in their shoes. Now you don't have to literally dress up as them, but you figuratively need to become that person so that you can understand how to navigate their language. It's the language of success, and if you master this, you will build the right product that people use. You will recruit the talent that is so excited to join your team, even if you don't have money to pay them. I've done it many times. If you master the language of investors, when you email them, they will respond. If you master empathy, you can master people. And if you can master people, you can master business. This could be you. This could be you in the spa. With Obama, with Oprah. If you don't know this guy, that's Brian Chesky, the CEO and founder of Airbnb, one of the fastest growing startups of the last 5 years, okay? That could be you in the spa of success if you actually act and apply what I've just taught you. Other things you can do, I've written a lot about this. So if you want to take a screenshot or whatever, a picture, these are where you can read more about exactly what I'm talking about. What do you say to people? What should you write? I have lists and examples so that you can leverage it even after this talk. So I'll give you about 5 seconds. Come on, gotta be fast, gotta be fast. Gotta be fast. And we're gone. Other things you can do to dive deeper, a lot of this stuff is not new. This is a lot of other principles, starting with this guy, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Book changed my life. Anybody else read it? Okay, anybody else read it more than once? All right, you need to read it at least once, and I keep it by my bedside. Always remember, it's not about me, it's about the other person. Other more common frames of this are in Simon Sinek's TED Talk. If you haven't listened to this, start with why. Highly recommend it. Design thinking, there's a whole school at Stanford about this, called design thinking. Gary Vee, he has a great analogy. He says, what is it called? Jab, 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 right hook. Every jab is where you're providing value to someone. A hook is the ask. You never make the hook without providing value, providing value, providing value. So remember this, when you're trying to form a relationship with someone you don't know, give them something before you take from them. And then last thing, Masters of Scales, the new podcast. There's an episode in particular I would love you to listen to. It's with Brian Chesky, that white guy I showed you in the previous spa with Obama and Oprah. But Brian Chesky has an episode where he talks literally how he leveraged this to build Airbnb to what it is today. It's super inspirational. All right. Lastly, I'll leave you with this. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Founders, we're good at talking, aren't we? We talk a good game. We got all sorts of ideas, all sorts of things we want to do. Stop. Check yourself. Be humble. Realize that you don't know anything. And that in order for you to win this game, you have to stop and learn the language of other people. So how was this? Up, down? Okay, okay. All right, I had a little surprise for ya. This Friday, I'm going to be offering, only to this group, a 60-minute free virtual coaching session. I'm going to present some more in-depth material, but specifically for funding. It doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit and you want to get foundations, I've done that. If you are a for-profit and you're looking for government grants, if you are a startup and you're looking for investment, all of these are options for you. And 3 people. I'm picking 3 people who sign up, and you're going to get a one-on-one session with me for free. So 3 people, where do you sign up? Right here. So take a screenshot of that or a picture. You must sign up in order to qualify for group coaching. And then again, I'm going to pick 3 people. That's it. I'm sorry. That's all I got time for to participate. It's just bit.ly, I want funding. All right, and that's it. This is where you can find me, my Twitter, my email. And again, I'll be looking at those emails. See if you've learned my language.
I'm looking at for Q&A now.
Okay, little Q&A. Can I get a round of applause, maybe? All right, anyone have questions?
So I really like your approach doing the background research on the people you're trying to engage with, but in the myriad of the 10,000 other things you have to get done, how much time do you think you should spend getting to know someone as you're making an approach or before you make an approach?
Is this in relation to customers, teammates, or funders?
All of the above.
Okay, so teammates don't matter if you don't have customers, funders don't matter if you don't have customers. So the most important thing is the user and the customer, because that is when you actually have some sort of tangible data that you're on the verge of product market fit. And if you don't have customers or users, none of it else, none of the rest matters. So you need to spend as much time as you need on your user, who you turn into your customer, before you do anything else. Because oftentimes people are pitching investors, and the investor's like, well, where are your users? And you're like, oh, I had 10 last month. And we're like, okay, what are your users today? Oh, they're 15. Okay, how many of them are staying around, right? Because it's one thing to get people to your platform. It's a totally different ballgame to get them to stay. So you need to spend as much time as you need on customer development. So for instance, even I'm building out a new product right now. I'm doing all this customer research. I'm spending a minimum of a month just doing research. Because again, we're so busy, we're so like anxious to get ahead and to get started. But if you don't get that first piece right, nothing else matters. It'll fall. It will. Yeah.
So clear. Hey, my question is, in your coaching business, for your ideal clients, how many are in your programs ideally, and what's your actual customer avatar?
10 people are in my cohort, one at a time, but I have 2 cohorts overlapping. So I'm able to manage basically 20 founders at a time myself. And so my customer avatar, I have 3. So I have the person who, I call them the beginner, meaning that they've decided to be an entrepreneur, but they haven't actually built anything yet, but they made a decision. That's a big part. The second person I call the part-timer without a product, meaning that they decided to become a founder, they're in the process of building a product, but they haven't launched yet. And then the third avatar is the part-timer with a product. The person who's decided to be an entrepreneur, they decided what they're building and they've launched it, but they haven't gone full-time. Maybe they're working a job already. Those are my 3 avatars, and then what I do is I find the 70% that's common across all 3. So what are the 70% of pain points my beginner has, my part-timer without a product has, and my part-timer with a product? Because if I can learn the 70% of the common language, I can put out marketing messages, just one message that'll apply to all 3. Does that make sense?
Hello, I'm a fellow Penn Stater. My name is Simone Corbin. Thank you for your very uplifting presentation. I kind of want to know, this is a little personal, what was your biggest challenge in getting where you are now? Being as I'm a student, I just would like to know that. And also, how did you overcome them?
My biggest challenge, it wasn't being ambitious. It was probably my biggest challenge. What a good question. My biggest challenge was actually deciding what not to do. Because I have so many ideas, I have so many areas of interest, and in order to be great at anything, you have to have such a laser focus and be willing to say no to a lot of other things so that you can perfect that one thing. And what I say is, what I've learned is that if I can perfect that one thing, I'm going to learn strategies and techniques that I can then leverage to the next thing I want to do. strategic. So it was learning how to say no to things, and even myself, so that I could be focused and strategic. Like I use the example of Amazon and Jeff Bezos. Like, hey, has anyone ever heard of the flywheel? A flywheel, I know some of my students do. A flywheel is a big, are you trying to get my attention? I'll be quick. Okay. A flywheel is like a big metal contraption. It's like, imagine this is your business, it's your startup, and in order to get the flywheel going, you have to make an initial push, and then it's like, okay, then okay, push it again, and eventually this flywheel builds momentum and it goes. Like if you think about Jeff Bezos and what Amazon is today, like think about when it just started. Does anyone remember what it was? A book. It was online books, selling and receiving online books. It wasn't what it was today, but he was strategic. He learned how to, if I could just master selling books online and building trust with people that if you order something online, it will arrive to your house in mint condition within 48 hours. Once he got that right, then he started putting other products on his platform. He started lowering the price of those products. And then he was able to attract people who were used to buying things in person, buying them online. And then he had so many customers, it created an influx of capital that then he used to make fulfillment centers. So he could house his own products now, right? And then on it goes, but it requires saying no. He couldn't build the Amazon that he has today from day one. You have to be super strategic about what you're optimizing for today, and then how winning that game is going to set you up for the next level. Okay? So I had to learn that.
Hi, my name is Jeff Taylor, and congratulations. What a great speaker. I really enjoyed your presentation. And congratulations to Nia. I've watched her grow up since about 12 years old.
Go in, Nia. Round of applause for Nia.
My question is for you. I saw your background. You came out as a 6th grade teacher. I just came out of corporate America, 30 years, starting my own thing. What was your aha moment to walk? I mean, and to really change complete cycles on yourself?
Yeah, I was a 6th grade teacher in South Central. At the time, I was finishing up my last semester. I was about to enter a PhD program because I thought that was what the next level was. After I teach, okay, then I become a teacher of teachers. And I went to an event called Startup Weekend. Has anyone ever heard of it? Okay, it's like the original hackathon. You have 54 hours, you pitch an idea, you build a team, you build a prototype, you pitch to investors. That was my first entree into entrepreneurship. I've never taken a business class, never took a finance class, never took a technology class, but I, for the first time, was in an environment where if I had an idea, it wasn't like, okay, great, let's theorize about what this could be. It was like, no, let's build this shit. And I was like, what? I didn't know. And I recruited business developers and marketers, and we built a prototype in 54 hours, and then we ended up winning first place in the competition. So for me, it was such an aha moment in this other world I wasn't exposed to about getting things done. And I've never looked back. I mean, it was literally, I was at this crossroads of, okay, do I go the traditional path of PhD because I worked my butt off to get in the program, or do I pursue this venture now? And for a while, to be honest, I thought I was Superwoman. I was like, oh, I could do both. I could build a company and get a PhD, no problem. And I was quickly humbled. It was so hard, and like I said before, I had to learn what to say no to and cut it so I could focus. And at that point in my life, I chose to take the dive and do it. And that was why I did it. But I oftentimes give advice to people, especially around finances. I'm going to be very honest with you. And I think Ramona's given a talk about this later this afternoon, so make sure you stick around for that. But the financial aspect of it was actually really hard for me. It's a part of the story I've told, so if you want to go on Medium and read my story. But I cashed out my credit cards, my retirement, my co-founder got his car repoed. I mean, it was not pretty. This is the reality. And so now I advise people on what I call saving up your jump jar, right? Your jump jar is like an entrepreneur's piggy bank. It's how much money you need to make the jump, and I say survive for at least 3 months. Because it's going to take you at least 3 months to actually build something that you could potentially either make revenue off of or that you can get a funder to invest in.
So we're going to be having last 2 questions.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. So it's common knowledge that less than 10% of investment in new companies goes to women and less than 1% goes to people of color. And I was wondering, based off of your presentation, that do you think that that is due to the Black and brown community having a lack of empathy toward investors and funders, and so is that part of the reason?
I think I think it's a great question. So Kipper Capital, we're actually one of the top investors in underrepresented founders, both women, African American, Latinx individuals. So your question I really, really appreciate. So if everyone heard it, it was about like, is a lack of empathy the reason why people from underrepresented backgrounds aren't getting capital? And I would say, no, that's not the reason necessarily. There are many layers to it, like bias, discrimination, sexism, racism, all sorts of isms that this country was built off of that actually play a role into how these decision makers who own the capital, mostly white men, have filtered through and created pattern matching systems for them to make decisions and figure like, oh, you look like the next Mark Zuckerberg, or you don't, so you don't really fit our pattern. So there's many other reasons why, so I would never feel comfortable saying it's because of empathy. But I think that understanding their perspective and their psyche makes you more aware of how to play the game. And it always is a balance. I actually have a slide I do in another presentation about recognizing, this is in any situation, recognizing their norms and your norms. And I put it like on a scale. So it's up to the individual to decide where they draw the line. Are you going to totally code switch and like move into like trying to look like Mark Zuckerberg, talk like a Mark Zuckerberg? Or are you going to stay authentic to who you are, but also with the understanding of how they make decisions? So again, I can't answer that for any one person, but I think the awareness of understanding who these people are, what they think about, how they make a decision, can make you better informed to navigate it, for sure. So again, thank you for that really good question.
Last question.
Hi, my name is Renethia Williams. I'm over here. I am the CEO and founder of Invita. We are a professional development solution for millennials in transition. And since many of us here are either sort of hacking VC funding or trying to build without it, can you talk a little bit more about some of the themes that you had that were successful in recruiting teammates without actually paying them?
Sure. So let me just preface this by saying, because you're not paying people doesn't mean you don't value them or you're not going to pay them. So I'm not in favor of like taking advantage of people. That's like a hell no to me. But there's the reality of I didn't have the capital right now. So there's other things you can leverage, like Kelly mentioned, equity, right? A portion of your company, so that you don't pay them cash outright, but you give them shares of your company that if they vest, meaning that they have to stay on board for a certain amount of time before they become realized. So that's definitely one of the main ways. But at the end of the day, understand anybody you're talking to, your customers, your teammates, your funders, they're human beings. They're emotional, they want things, right? And every human being has the same three needs. They want to know, do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I have to say matter? Everybody wants the same things. And so with teammates, what I oftentimes do is get to know them, or people that I'm even trying to recruit. I'll just take them out for lunch. I'll listen to what they care about, where they've been, what they aspire to do. And as I learn more and more about who they are, and particularly what they aspire to do, I'll then check with myself and be like, can I offer them something here? So for instance, they've been working a 9-to-5 corporate job and they feel limited, like there's a ceiling, and they're telling me they want to grow. I then present my value proposition as join my startup. This is a place where you're going to grow. You're going to be able to wear multiple hats. You're going to be able to be in a fast-paced, high-growth environment. You're going to be able to even hire people under you as we go, right? So it's, again, taking the time to listen to what they care about. And not everybody's about growth. Some people are about money, right? And you have to know that, because then I'll know if they're a good fit for where my business is at right now, or if I'm wasting my time. Is that helpful? Everything?
Yeah, let's give another round of applause. Next up, we have Thomas K. Arstowell. I just want to take a moment to talk about Thomas, because he was one of my fellow EIRs with the Code 2040 residency. Based in Chicago, he leads one of the largest tech communities for people of color called Black and Tech. He also is the founder of Candid, which is a micro-survey feedback platform. You guys might get to try that out today. And he also gives amazing talks about how to think like a startup, which he's going to dive into a little bit today. Thomas, I love because he always keeps me honest about if I am really focused on the things that I need to be getting done. As an entrepreneur, it's really, really easy to get overwhelmed with a laundry list of things that you're doing because you have to worry about this and that and this and this and that. You don't get to focus on just one thing. You have to focus on everything to make sure that things are happening, and it's very easy to lose track of everything because you have to do everything. So he's going to show you how to really just focus on the most important things and making sure that you're getting that done and holding yourself accountable to it. Without further ado, Thomas.
Okay, everybody. My name is Thomas K.R. Stovall, as Aaliyah said, and I hail from Chicago. What I do for a living is I help organizations and entrepreneurs identify where they're trying to get, where they're at right now with respect to that goal, and what's in between. A software company that recommends feedback to shine some light on that. I do that through speaking at enterprises and associations and impact organizations to help them identify that. And I also lead a membership organization that helps entrepreneurs to identify that. So I'm going to share with you guys some really tactical specifics today about how I manage my time and how I manage, the things that I'm out in the world doing. And sometimes I do talks that have a little bit more rooted in the story. Today, my sleeves are rolled up very purposely. We're going to actually do a little bit of very tactical work. So I probably am going to move pretty quickly because there's a lot of information to cover. So you can reach out afterwards if you want to get the actual slides.
Can you speak up some, please?
Yes, I'll speak up a little bit. Is that better? Okay, good. All right, so let me just set expectations really quickly about what we're going to cover. Number one, how to connect and engage on social media. So my parents did a great job branding me. I'm literally the only Thomas K.R. Stovall online, like in the world. And you can check this out. I hope your parents did as well as mine did, but you can just find me at Thomas K.R. Stovall on everything. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, pretty much wherever, and also thomasKRStovall.com. And that's got a listing of all the projects that I'm currently working on. I'm Black and Tech is my membership organization. You can connect with us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and also at I'mBlackandTech.com. How to stay engaged on social media, if you do care to tag the hashtags. I'm Black and Tech, the organization. Intention mastery is what we're talking about today. So how to give feedback. What I do for a living is I work in the world of feedback. And I truly do care. Anytime I hit the stage, I want to know whether or not I hit the mark on what I'm promising. So at the end of this event, you're actually going to get an opportunity to respond to a one-question micro-survey and tell me whether or not what I said actually made a difference today. And also, what the key takeaways were. So everybody who's got a cell phone in here today, just raise your hand for me. This is great. So that's called the setup. So I don't need you to download anything or sign up for anything, but take out your cell phone or on your laptop or on your tablet, just go to candidfeedback.com and bookmark it. Because at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a little 7-digit code for you to respond to a one-question micro-survey, and we're going to turn the entire room into an instant focus group in 60 seconds flat. That's what I do for a living, but I also use my product for myself. So I'm going to take about 10 seconds. Take out your device, bookmark that, and don't do anything else. Then we'll move on. All right. Next, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm sitting in an audience, my first thought is, like, do I really want to trust this person? What makes them the person to speak about this? So I'm just going to give you a little bit about my background, and I'll let you determine whether or not you're going to buy into what I'm selling today. So a few wins, losses, and lessons. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all of my adult life. I do have an electrical engineering degree from Tennessee State University that I have never used. I started my first business out of my college dorm room at 19, and I actually have been employed for 8 months in my adult life, and that's it. When I was 25, I got an opportunity to go out to LA and apprentice with a gentleman that ran a real estate private equity investment firm. And I took that knowledge and went back to Chicago, worked 8 months to get $3,000 in the bank so that I can invest in real estate. And over the next 18 months, I turned that $3 grand into 7 figures, investing in working class communities on the south side of Chicago. What's more impressive is by the time I was 30, I lost all that shit. So, literally no credit, no money in the bank, a few $1 million of real estate gone, lost my dream home, and it humbled me. I've humility tattooed on my wrist, and it's for a reason. After you get used to, having everything that you want and need, and it's just all taken away in an instant, you realize that you need help, you need mentorship, and it's why I'm really committed to mentorship so strongly today, is I knew that I could make money, but I didn't know how to keep it, that was for sure. And so I jumped back on the horse, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I do now. After real estate, I transitioned into tech. What I do for a living, number one, I'm the founding partner of Candid, and as Ania mentioned, we crowdsource feedback. So we call that micro feedback, using 1-question surveys, 160 characters or less, to crowdsource feedback for large enterprises like Diageo, they're the largest manufacturer of premium wine, beer, and spirits on the globe, also for large associations, impact organizations. I do think tanks under my speaker brand called Think Like a Startup for large enterprises as well, like Clorox and CDW. And in 90 minutes, I go into organizations, and we take from their C-level executives all the way to non-skilled employees, put them together in the exact same room, and we identify directly from the mouths of the employees and the people close to the organization, the key stakeholders, what's working, what's not, around one specific challenge that that organization is having, and the one most important goal they've got over the next 12 months. And so everything is about laser beam focus. And you'd be surprised, in an organization, your people already know what's working, what's not, and what the solutions are, and they're already talking about it. They're just not talking to you. And if you give people a safe space, they'll tell you what you need to know. And lastly, I'm Black and Tech. We're a global membership network, for founders and professionals, mostly founders though, that are Black and Latino. And we've got 40 plus members of 40 plus states, 6 countries, and the people that are on our network have raised and generated over $415 million in their startups. You've seen them on the cover of Black Enterprise. They've closed the largest deals in the history of Shark Tank. And it's all the way down to people that are trying to transition into tech, and they're like, look, I've been a professional for 15 years, and I want to start this tech company. What's this app thing, right? So that's what I do. And who we've worked with, you probably recognize some of those logos. That's a little bit about my background. So now let's get into the training. Number one, you need to design your environment to actually account for your weaknesses. We're pretty much all built the same. When you get down to it, our brains really operate the same. You've got to hack your brain. If you know the things that make a difference, in most of us, again, we're built the same way, you just structure your environment so you account for those things. Community is really important. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to get anywhere, you're not going to get there alone. Period, point blank. And it's a very long, lonely journey if you're trying to build something. You've got to get a group of like-minded people around you so that they can support you with the emotional support as well as the knowledge that you need to get where you're trying to go. That's number one, is to have a community of people. We'll touch more on that later. Number two, you need constraints. So I've got a lot of friends that are creatives, artists, nationally recognized, and every one of them that I know that does really well, they actually carve out time every single week just to create. You can't find them, you can't contact them, they're not on social media. When they're creating, nothing else gets in. Structure breeds creativity. It's really important to actually have constraints. And I know some of you guys, like you don't want to do it, you gotta have some structure. Number three, consequence. So I lead a mastermind. And it's a one-year mastermind. We got people from different cities that are part of it. Every single week we have a call. And every Monday, 9 a.m. Every single week, we've got a spreadsheet that's due with revenue updates and goals and things like that. is due at 9 p.m. on Sunday. If you don't have your spreadsheet in by 9 p.m., 9:01 you get fined $50 for every single field in the spreadsheet that's not filled out. 9 a.m., you're not on the call, 9:01, you get fined $50. So there's constraints, there's consequences around what we're doing, and guess what? We don't really have too many people that miss that spreadsheet or late to that call. And we've been doing this for a year. So you gotta create that environment that accounts for the fact that you probably don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like getting up every Monday at 8 a.m. to actually have that happen. But inside of our community, we've created that integrity by actually forcing ourselves to be inside of an environment where there's risk, there's threat of loss if we don't do it. Part 2, focus on actions, not outcomes. Everybody wants to focus on what their revenue goals are and what their projections are, but if you actually dig into the actions, they haven't articulated exactly how they're going to get there. If you don't have an exact plan, you're probably not going to do it. If you can't see it, you can't say it. If you can't say it, you can't do it. Articulate your plan on paper, and you can actually get there. So, inside of this thinking, I came up with a concept, language for a concept that all you guys know very well. I call it the Omni Gap. I trademark this. And the Omni Gap is the moment you define a goal, you also create a measurable gap in the actions that need to be taken in order to move from your current state to the desired outcome. This is omnipresent. If you create a goal, by definition, it is somewhere else other than where you're at right now. And there's a gap. Most people only look at the numbers in the gap. How much revenue do I need to generate? People don't actually articulate the actions that are in the gap. So we're going to talk about the Omni Gap today. Number 2, build a transaction map for every product or service. Document every single way that leads can get into your sales funnel. And when I say every single way, I literally mean every single way. So I'll give y'all a snapshot. You probably can't see this again, but I just wanted you to see the structure. I use Asana for everything. So in Asana, I've got every business or project that I'm working on kind of listed there. And I literally have every single way that you can find out about me in that structure, in a funnel. Whether that's on stage, or we met on person with a business card, whether you found me on LinkedIn, whether you read a blog, whether it's from an email that I sent you cold, I've actually mapped all this out so that I can track how people respond in different areas. Some people just say, biz dev. Well, there's a bunch of different things. Did you call that person? Did you email that person? Was it cold? Was it warm? Was it an introduction? There's so many different things that you can be tracking, and if you're not, you're kind of shorting yourself from understanding what's really going on. Next, you need to define your Omni Gap numbers. So what that means is, if you have a desired amount of revenue, you have to also know how many sales inside of your current term sheet, right? Your current term, contract, whatever. How many sales does it take for you to hit that desired revenue? How many contracts does it take to get that number of sales? Because as some of you guys know, every time you get a contract does not mean somebody actually paid you money, right? So in my particular business, I don't do proposals. I do live demos, and if you'd like to move forward, I send you a contract, and then we actually move to fulfillment. I don't do proposals, like my terms are the same for everybody, so there's no need for a proposal. You say, yes, you want a contract, you get a contract, so I skip that. But for other people, they do have contract sales, and then for the number of contracts that you want, how many live demos does it take you to actually get to a place of contract where somebody says yes, right? For the number of live demos that you need, how many invitations do you need out in the world for people to respond to? An invitation could be a post on Twitter. An invitation could be a direct email. An invitation could be a cold phone call. What I call anything that is an opportunity for people to say, I'd like to know more about that. That's an invitation. How many does it take? And when you actually start tracking all this stuff, you'll begin to see different percentages show up, and you'll know exactly what actions you need to take and how many of them to hit your desired revenue. So this is a snapshot. If you can see closer, at the top, I've got a revenue number up there, over a certain period of time. And once you hit the top line revenue, you break that down into the exact months that you have. So this is over 5 months. And then when you get past the number of revenue, the revenue number for each month, you've got a number of contracts for that revenue number for each month that it would take to actually hit that. And then once you get down to the contract level, you've got a number of live demos for me that I would need to have in order to get that number of contracts, because I know I close about 25% of the people that I actually do a live demo with. And once you have the number of live demos that you need for each month, then you actually look at how many days do I have in each month that I'm looking at. So for August, if I started this on August 4th to August 31st and took Monday through Friday, because people aren't necessarily responding on Saturday and Sunday, there's literally 21 days. And for September, October, November, and December, there were 22, 22, 22, 21 days respectively. So if I look at the 100 total invitations that I need to, live demos that I need to have, and break that down, divided by the number of days each month, I can see that I need to make an average of 5 invitations per day in order for me to hit that revenue number that I've got for the whole time period. So that's how you break down from revenue, down to number of contracts, down to number of live demos, down to the number of invitations. So if I'm focused on the most important thing, I don't have to worry about the revenue number, I need to worry about the actions. And if I can articulate the actions, then the revenue number becomes a foregone conclusion. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that was one of the most important things for me to understand in transitioning from like wanting to build something to actually get into a place where I know how to generate revenue. I just didn't know how to articulate the actions. And if you don't know how to do that, get help with it. It is literally the most important thing you can do in your business is understand what actions you need to be taking over what time frame. You've got to break it down. Oh, so number 4 is to actually articulate these omni-gap actions. So document all steps for each transaction map to move prospects from invitation to money in the bank. So you can't see this, you can see the structure, but before I showed you guys all the numbers. So I wrote down all the numbers I had to get to. Here are the actual actions. So for that first invitation email, for example, like what needs to go into that email? Who am I sending that email to? So up here I say the pre-work is to create a Mixmax email sequence. Some of you guys may be familiar with Mixmax. It's like an email automation tool. So my first action is to create an email sequence for a very specific person that's a conference manager in Mixmax. The second action is for that exact same person. It's a different type of sequence that has a different context to it. So I'm literally in my mind mapping out, how do I want to reach out to these people? How are they going to respond? I'm going to try 3 different ways. The first way is talking about the product. The second way is saying, hey, I'm doing this thing called association relevance. I'd like to feature you on our Twitter profile. Can I get a headshot? So it's literally just different ways to say the same thing that get me into their funnel in a way that might be interesting to them, but they're all little tests. Then there's the actual prospecting. Now I've written the emails. Now I've got the context down. Who's going to send those emails out? How many do we need to send per day? Who's doing that prospecting? So I have an account with a tool called associationexecs.com that gives me a listing of all the associations in the country and their leadership boards, their actual email addresses and their phone numbers, so I know that I can get to my ideal client. But who's going to go and do the work to actually find those 10 names a day that I need and drop them in the Mixmax? That's something I need to write down. Those are the actions that need to take place. What are the planned outcomes? Out of a total of 106 possible days of outreach, I locked down that I would need to have 5 association executives that were sent a communication each day, a minimum of 20 live demos per month, a minimum of 4 one-year license contracts per month, and 1 pilot contract per month based on my price points, to generate a minimum of $42,500 per month and a minimum of $212,000 over the course of that time period. So that's the structure, but somebody's just got to do the work. The planning is one thing, the execution is another thing. But you're not going to execute anything if you don't first have a plan. So the last piece of this is making it a foregone conclusion. I detailed out that I need to reach out to 5 people per day. So how do I make that in my mind a foregone conclusion? I just double it. So if I know I need to reach out to 5, I'm going to set my number to reach out to 10. And that way you actually exceed your goals from a planning standpoint. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Just want to make sure we're tracking. I see a lot of heads nodding, that's good. Okay, just FYI, anybody who's on the team, let me know about how much time I have, because I don't have a timer right now.
You got 5 more minutes.
Okay, cool. So, next up, this is just a quick snapshot of what an email might look like. I usually have super short, simple emails, and I'm a fan of showing instead of describing. So I don't describe what I do in an email, I literally have a live demo. And usually it's got their logo on a little image that says, all I need is 10 seconds. This is how event managers all over the country are using our software to turn breakout sessions into instant focus groups. And it shows them how they can see it. And if they click that, they're going to see their logo in context of a conference they have coming up in real life. So that's another tool that I use, like show instead of tell. Next, once you've done this work, you want to rank all your sales funnels based on the length of time that you know it's going to take. So length, cost, time, and intangibles. Once you've done the work, you can kind of tell about how long it's going to go from invitation to close contract inside of your sales cycles. You'll start to see patterns show up. Next, you want to look at how much does it actually cost you internally to do this. I'm a fan of organic stuff. I don't like doing a lot of ads on Facebook and things like that. I like personal communication. So the cost is usually just the cost of my time or my team's time. But some people are a fan of like Facebook ads and things like that. If you actually have costs, you want to detail that so you know what your customer acquisition cost is. What's the actual time of the humans that are on your team that are doing this work? How long does it take them every day to put together these emails, to send things, to follow up, track that? The intangibles. Do you like the way that this process works? Do you like one funnel better than the other? Do you just not like reaching out cold to people? That stuff matters to me. I hate cold phone calls. I don't think they're really effective. So I don't do them. So intangibles like that make a big difference to me. I like having warm introductions. So that's usually how I build my business out. So you're going to rank all of these different funnels that you've got, and you'll start to see which ones are going to be the best fit for you. And last, you're going to prioritize your actions. So once you've got them ranked, you might have a ranking of 1 through 6 on which ones are actually by the numbers the best. Then you're going to say, okay, well, based on my current resources, funnel number 1, even though it will be the best, it's got the Facebook ads, I only have $250 in my pocket. So I literally cannot do this funnel. I'm going to have to move to number 2. So you now prioritize which ones make the most sense based on your real resources, the real people who you know, the real time that you have. Some of your team might be part-time, some of them might be full-time. They don't necessarily have the time to invest into funnel number 1. You literally look at what you have and you make the best choice. So personal management structures, I'm going to go through this really quickly, just so you'll see visually what it looks like to manage my stuff. Anyone who I meet, I use Asana to kind of nurture that relationship and track where I'm at inside of that. So I meet people at conferences. I've got met once, follow-up needed, actively exploring an opportunity, next steps required, currently working together, or the timing's not right. And so I'm tracking like where I'm at in those relationships. I have what I call a master to-do list, an MTDL. That's for my personal stuff. So the MTDL holds all things that are related to my business. It's like my master place for a brain dump. I do not have an idea that lives out in like some gray space, because it's wasted brain space. If I have an idea, it's associated with a business, I drop it into the MTDL. It's not time for me to schedule it right now, but it's tracked somewhere associated with each business. And I just keep track of everything here. My weekly action tracker is once it's time to take one of those MTDL items into real life and put a time and a date on them, I put them in here for ranking and prioritization with my daily and weekly work. So I have moonshots, I have the work that's unscheduled, this is the work that's planned through Sunday, then I've got the stuff that's actually scheduled, the stuff that's been rescheduled, because I want to keep track of how many times I'm saying I'm going to do stuff and then actually don't do it in real life. And then I have the work that's completed, because from a brain science perspective, it feels really good to actually look over in that column and see what you've been doing every day. See the stuff that you've been doing every week, because you need those small wins as a founder. This is what the prioritization looks like. I have high 1, high 2, high 3, medium 1, 2, 3, low 1, 2, 3. And there's a definition for why something fits in one of those categories. High 1 is all money related. I've got to be sending an invoice. I've got to be sending a contract to a customer that wants one. I've got to be paying a bill that I need to pay. High 2 is related to like really, really top level biz dev of warm clients. And each one of these is prioritized different ways. But I keep track of stuff so I don't have to figure out what I should be doing next. I can literally look at how they're ranked, and the highest level action that comes next just goes into my weekly calendar. So there's nothing for me to think about. Part 4, team management structures. It looks very similar to my personal, except it's all focused on my team. So this tracks where the transaction cycle, number 1, my master biz dev funnel, it tracks where we're at each opportunity. So we go from potential prospect to invitation to presentation phase to contract is out and I'm waiting on the invoice to be satisfied to contract signed, invoice satisfied. Then we move on to fulfillment and then satisfaction metrics, completion assessment, and last, inactive. So I didn't close something, but I want to keep track of what those opportunities were. Obviously, I'm not showing you guys everybody who I'm doing business with, but I'm showing you enough so you see some colors up there on the board. My team master to-do list, this is where we keep track of all the design and development that's outstanding each week that we have to get done. And we have a master to-do list for that too. So this is a monthly mixer that we've got coming up on the 17th. And we had to get the flyer done, so like that's one of the action items that's in there, and we keep track of that. Daily stand-up meetings with the team, super important. Every single day, quick 30-minute meetings to review what we've actually planned for the week, what got completed, what didn't get completed yesterday, what was actually planned, stuff like that. You want to keep that in front of you so you've got the big view, but you got the short view of what you're doing every day, and there's accountability there. Next, I've got the OmniGap actions and numbers. We've got a heat map. So like on our application page for Black and Tech, we literally look, it's 9 pages, from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. We know the actual attrition rates for how many people started on page 1, where they click. You know, how many people move from page 1 to page 2, day by day, week by week. So we change a word on one of those pages, we know exactly what impact that it had. And our close rate is extremely high. That's been cultivated because we're actually tracking the numbers on every page that matters to us. Because the most important thing that you can do is know what action you want people to take. If you go to blackandtech.com, like become a member is pretty much the only thing that's in your face. I don't care if you see anything else on the site until you actually engage in the way we want you to engage. Team weekly action trackers for ranking and prioritizing all my active projects. So once a project that needs to get worked on goes into the queue, there's in queue through Sunday, stuff that's active and scheduled, stuff that's waiting on review, so some work has been done, I need to review it, I'm tagged on it, and I know I need to look at it. Once I look at it, are there any bugs or issues or updates that need to be issued, then I pass that back on to my designer, my developer, and last, the stuff that's been completed and approved, and then it's done. And last, and then we're gonna wrap up, you've gotta have a wolf pack. Y'all are gonna hear me keep talking about this, you have to have a community. And this is the first year. I've been a solo entrepreneur for many, many years. In 2017, I'm really focused on creating what I call a wolf pack, which is other people that actually care about what you're doing. Right? They're on the same path, they're on the same journey, and they want to have other people around them to support them financially, emotionally. You know, sometimes it means having dinner and just checking in and knowing what's going on. Other times it's literally having them top of mind and saying, oh man, I just met this person, here's what they're doing, I think this will be a fit, can I make an introduction for you? But you gotta have people who are committed to what you're doing that you talk to every day. It makes a huge difference. And even if you have a small team, having those other people in your life will have you feel like you have a team, long enough for you to get over the hump. Lastly, we do a mastermind on Black and Tech that is 1 year, it's for people that are super, super committed to growing their business. And it's happening starting in November. So we already did one last year, and we're getting ready to start up another one for 2018. But super, super important to make sure that you connect with a group of people that are connected with you and care about what you care about. So again, the best way to engage, we are literally a global membership community. We have 13 different event series that support founders where they're at in their journey, whether you're building something, launching something, already generating revenue, and you're looking to figure out how to blueprint and scale up. It's the best place to actually get that as a community. It doesn't matter where you're at. So as I said earlier, I truly want to know whether or not what I delivered today made a difference, and that you're left in a place that you can actually take some of this information and do a little bit better in your business, become a little bit more efficient. So take out your phone. We're going to take 1 minute for you to actually give me a little bit of feedback. Go back to candidfeedback.com, drop in that 7-digit response code, and then we're going to wrap up. It's a cool beer, man. Just cut mine off. I feel good about it. Oh, the Wi-Fi is overloaded. Will y'all just take a screenshot? Some of them got a little warm. So that's my presentation. I don't know if there's any time for Q&A. I don't think so. But that's it. Okay, good. We're gonna do a little Q&A.
Hi, I'm Camille, founder of Chapel Plus, an online shop for plus size girls. And my question is, how did you go about starting your wolf pack? Because right now we're under $500,000 in revenue, and sometimes when I meet other founders, they're so like revenue driven that it's hard. I mean, my experience has been to really get a group of people who can help you not only grow amongst each other, but get you to the next level and kind of help them as well. So what is your advice for finding kind of like these different groups of people who are kind of in the same place? I don't know, I'm based in New York, so I feel like everything is so huge there, but I don't know what your ideas are about that.
Yeah, so when I was starting my mastermind, I actually just looked deep into my personal network and identified the friends that I had that were kicking butt and taking names, and the people that were truly, you know, like really cared about stuff beyond just their own balance sheet. Like they were invested in other people. And I chose 14 people to reach out to, knowing that I wanted to have 8 people in the mastermind. And I did it like I would do any other business opportunity. I detailed exactly what was going to be included in that 1 year, like exactly what the expectation was, what the consequences were, like all of it. And then I had a webinar to actually talk them through my vision. And, you know, from the emotional standpoint, appeal to what I was trying to create, let them know, look, I don't know if y'all have felt this, but I'm tired of doing this by myself. And they all felt the same way. And then you start just moving from intention over to commitment. Some of the people that were super excited, they started looking at their schedules and they're like, yeah, I'd love to, but I just can't do it. Other people were a little bit nervous about the money aspect because of the consequences. They're excited, but when they have to be held to account, like, look, you're gonna pay a fine if you don't keep your word to yourself. Like, I don't know, check me next year. So you just do it like you would do any other business, but really focus on people that you know care about the same stuff that you care about. And I try to level up a little bit as well. So the people that are on my network, some of them are at the same place in terms of revenue and things like that, but I really search for the people that were like a few notches up so they could contribute in a different way to what I was trying to do. Does that answer your question?
So this is like getting, getting maybe more practical to your tactical. I love how your project management and all that stuff is kind of dumped in one place, but I'm in a place where I'm trying to figure out how to fit everything in. I'm in the, like, a little bit post-beginning stages. I'm just starting to build a team that I'm like paying to work, but I'm basically doing a lot of it myself. I'm doing a lot of travel, but I still have to execute on my product, and I'm still doing most of that work myself. So I love that you have like Asana. Asana has saved my life a bunch of times, like Google Calendar, but like, how are you going about chunking out your time? How are you going about executing on on the projects that you actually have to do? Is there a strategy that you employ for that?
Yeah, so I didn't put this up here, but I actually break my day into what I call work time blocks. There's 5 of them. And in the morning,
5 time blocks a day?
Yeah, 5 time blocks. And it's actually only a total of like 5.5 hours. And after that, I just kind of do whatever I want to do. But in the morning, your brain is most creative. Like that's when you're the freshest. That's the time where you should do creation-oriented work. So when you've got to do like a new type of, you know, presentation, something like that, like you do that in the morning, stuff that's brand new. And I usually have about an hour and 45 minutes for my creation time block. In the afternoon, that's when I have 2 strategy time blocks, so like strategy, biz dev, stuff that requires me to sit and thinking like, all right, so how should I format this email? I'm not creating something new, like maybe I'm editing or updating something, but it's strategy around like, who should I reach out to? How should I, like, what should the context be? It's that type of work. And then in the afternoon, at the end of the day, I have a completion time block that's like your brain is dead, it's 5 p.m. That's best for rote items that are like, drop this off the mail or follow up with this person, but there's no strategy that's necessary. You don't have any space to really think about things. So it's best to put that stuff at the end of your day where it's like you literally don't have to think. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Can I say one more quick thing? Also, at the beginning, I focus on blueprints on Black and Latinx. So there's like tons of different conferences and summits and events. Most of it doesn't matter. Because at the beginning of your business, there's only a few things you need to know really well. You need to know exactly who your customer is. You need to know exactly how to find them. You need to know exactly how you're going to communicate with them. Period. And outside of that, there's not much else you need to be focusing on. So, you know, we set up all of our event series to focus on very specific tactical things in order. And most of it you just don't need until you've got real people who you're reaching out to, and it takes no time to start calling people long before you build some tech. Like, you don't need to build anything. Manually, reach out to people. You start like making some headway with talking to people, then you do something semi-automated, where maybe there's like some version of a first draft of a product that doesn't look all that great, but it accomplishes some goal, and you've got to actually be on the back end servicing something. Because inside of that manual work, you begin to see insights pop up that if you built the product first, you're going to miss a bunch of stuff and make assumptions, and it's a waste of time and money. And long into the process, then you automate.
Could you repeat that? Who my customer is, how to find
Yeah.
them, and what was the third thing?
Exactly who your customer is, exactly how you, like where you find them, and exactly the messaging that you're going to be using to reach out. So like, is that an email, is it a phone call, is it live face-to-face? You need to break down what that actual structure looks like from that first invitation all the way down to contract.
Yeah, I'll just tell them.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Thomas. So I keep thinking that about, I've heard Thomas talk about this a little bit, and Ella mentioned it a little bit about really honing in and focusing on your customer. There was this webinar that I watched recently, and one of the founders of, oh my God, ConvertKit, was talking about how narrow they had to get to focus on who their first customer was. Like, they were like, okay, we're going to sell our product to bloggers, and realized that that was too broad of a category. So they're like, okay, we're just going to focus on food bloggers, and then that was too broad of a category. So they had to narrow it down even more to, we're going to focus on paleo food bloggers, and then that was too wide. So they're like, we're going to focus on women paleo food bloggers, and that was when they started to really nail who they were selling their product to. And that was when word of mouth really started to take shape. And you would think that by narrowing it down, you're giving yourself too few customers to work with, but really you have to do the practice and the work of understanding what is it that's important to your customer so that you can convert them, and then it's a matter of just replicating that and doing that over and over and over again. So I think that that was a really great final note to end on too, Thomas. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. It's lunchtime, but before I let you go and tackle those boxes over there, I just want to let you know that we're trending on Twitter. Which is pretty cool. Keep sharing. And then also, I'm just curious to know, like, in terms of now that we're kind of through this halfway point of the day, I'd love to hear from people, just like one thing that has surprised you this morning. Anybody want to volunteer a piece of information that you learned today that you didn't expect? Thomas?
So my mouth is super dry after that presentation. I wasn't expecting that. But I love the focus of what Mandela was talking about. I'm a very focused person, but just listening to somebody else share always brings you something new, no matter how deep you're in an area. So it just reminded me it's really important to be in rooms like this, always, like no matter where you're at.
Anybody else have one thing?
Well, because of Thomas's presentation, I realized I need a lot of work with scheduling every item. So that is the first on the to-do list because I'm nowhere near as organized. So it's great to see that that needs to be done.
Yeah, I told you guys, Thomas is the one that had me like, Ania, you're doing too much. Okay, cool. So one other announcement that I have before we go to lunch is that we are going to also start having office hours sign up. So tomorrow, we are going to have, in addition to a few talks, breakout sessions, which are going to be really, really awesome. A lot more like focused on different specific areas. They're going to be breakouts that happen over there. And then we're also going to have this room layout a little bit different so that people can get one-on-one time with people who are experts in their field. And so we have almost 40 mentors that have signed up to sit down and have quality time with the people who are here in this room. So any of your most burning, pressing questions that you have, or you just want to validate an idea that you have about a particular area, go over to our desk where the registration is. They're ready to start receiving people, and you don't have to do it right now, but sometime from now through the end of the day, grab a slot so that you can get a mentor office hour session tomorrow. Yes, you have a question? The hours, that's a great question. So we're going to have, the entire day will be 8:30 to 5 tomorrow. The mentor office hour blocks will be from 9:30 to 11:30, 12:30 to 2:30, I'm trying to recall this off the top of my head, and 3:30 to 5. Yeah, and breakout sessions will be happening concurrently. Yes, Brianna.
I have someone from our online chat, our live chat, who states, her name's Alicia. She says she has been surprised by receiving actionable advice and honest acknowledgement of failure.
Yeah, that's true. Keeping it real. We all keep it real. This group of people. Cool. Okay, so that said, let's do lunch, and we are going to start with Danielle and generating revenue from day one at 1 o'clock.